Good evening. This is the Ogden City Council meeting for March 5th, 2013. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present. And now we'll have Vice Chair Garner lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would the audience please rise and then repeat after me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Next on the agenda is recognitions, and we're just going to skip over item A and move on down to, and we'll come back to item A in a moment. First is a presentation to Julia LaShore. Close enough? Upon receiving the Certified Municipal Clerk designation. And that will be from, is it Annette Spenlove?
Our neighboring city. Welcome.
Oh, I don't know if you wanted to say that. But I grew up here in Ogden City, so it's a pleasure to be here. And Mayor and Council, thank you for letting us take this opportunity to present this award to Julia LaShore. As some of you might know, Julia was my deputy recorder until Ogden stole her away. And anyway, Julia, can you come up? I'd just like her to stand up here for a minute. Most all professionals realize the importance of staying abreast of the most recent developments and changes that unfold within their fields. There is no profession where the professionalism, there is no profession where the understanding is more prominent than the recorder-clerk profession, where amendments and current legislative acts are introduced on a routine and very often annual basis. Continuing education in the field of recorder-clerk takes on even a greater significance when we consider the constant changes in election laws, records management, and transparency requirements, and those are just to name a few. As part of our association, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Utah Municipal Clerks Association, we can obtain a certified municipal clerk and master municipal clerk designation. The certified municipal clerk, which CMC program, is designed to enhance the job performance of the recorder clerk in small and large municipalities. To earn the CMC designation, a municipal clerk must attend extensive education programs. It also requires pertinent experience in a municipality. And Julia did get that in North Ogden. The CMC program prepares the applicants to meet the challenges of the complex role of the municipal recorder and clerk by providing them with quality education in partnership with institutions of higher learning, as well as state and national associations. The CMC program has been assisting recorders to excel since 1970. It takes 120 hours to earn the 60 education points needed to meet this requirement. The International Institute of Municipal Clerks and the Utah Municipal Clerks Association are organizations with hardworking, caring people sharing knowledge with each other and those new to the recorder-clerk profession. This association is an avenue for municipal clerks to stand together, strengthen and grow the profession, and build and sustain a framework for those that follow us, carrying our mission forward to ensure that local government service is delivered by educated, informed, progressive, and capable municipal clerks. So at this time, we'd like to give Julia her certificate that's mounted here for her, and it's from the International Municipal Clerks Association that certifies her as a CMC and as a municipal clerk, and also from the board, we'd like to give her just this little basket of things. So thank you. Thank you for And we're going to ask to be excused. I need to attend other meetings, so thank you.
You. Julia, did you want to say anything?
Almost got away. More than anything. Yes, I would like to thank the council and administration for recognizing this achievement tonight. It has been a long time coming. It does take, like she said, quite a bit of time to get that those education points, but I really appreciate the support that I've gotten from North Ogden City and from Ogden as well since I've been here, to be able to continue on with the many aspects of my education and get this designation. So thank you.
Congratulations. Okay. Next, we'll move on to items under common consent.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the items 5A, 5B, and 5C for common consent to set the public hearing for March 26, 2013.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Vice Chair Garner to adopt the items under common consent and a second from Council Member Heyer. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Next on the agenda is reports from the Planning Commission.
Mr. Rick Grover is got his best suit on, and he's ready to present.
Looks very nice.
Chair, members of the council. You may recall we had a work session a few weeks ago dealing with temporary signs. And I'm just going to kind of refresh your memory, and for the public who wasn't there, just kind of some of the background information, and then I'll jump into what the Planning Commission's recommendation was on that. As far as temporary signs, right now we allow basically 3 different types of temporary signs. We allow those for Harvest Moon Festival or for along 25th Street, and those type of signs are considered non-commercial signs. And then we allow signs that are commercial in nature, but they can only be up for grand openings, and then after a certain period of time, which is 30 days after, they need to be taken down. And then we also allow signs for like at ball fields and the fairgrounds. They may be on the back field fence. This picture is taken here in the bottom right-hand corner at Lindquist. And those are the 3 different types of signs that we allow at the present time. So how does the community perceive banner signs? And one thing we noticed is that we allow them for certain events in the city, such as, on ball fields and along 25th Street, but then we don't allow them along, for commercial businesses. And so it's starting to send somewhat of a mixed message to some of the business owners, and we haven't been enforcing it. And so they're getting a mixed message out there. Are they allowed? Or are they not allowed? And because of that, there is a code violation if we did enforce it. And what the business owners have found is that it's very critical for the success of their business to have these up, because it provides a quick opportunity to advertise. They may have a certain promotion that they really want the public to know about in a quick time frame, and they have a limited budget, and so they find that it's worth possibly getting a code violation versus the success of their business. So at the present time, we allow temporary signs. The definition for grand openings is banners and A-frames. So it encompasses all of that, and I'll discuss a little later on how we're kind of separating that with the Planning Commission's recommendation. Because we haven't been enforcing it, it has created some problems. It's impacted the survivability of trees in certain areas. They've been placed in tree grates. And then also, we get tons of signs being placed on a building, and it really creates a lot of visual clutter that really isn't conducive to the business district. However, before the restrictions went into place on temporary signs in 1979, Temporary signs and banner signs were an important part of the success of businesses. I love both these photos, 25th Street and Washington Boulevard, and they A-frame signs and banner signs, and it really creates a great opportunity for these business owners. However, where we don't allow them today, the business needs of business owners hasn't changed. They still would like to have these type of signs in the area. Also, the 25th Street Master Plan has called out for A-frame signs, and they've mentioned that as part of the master plan. So we checked with other cities, how do they handle it? And there's quite a few cities, Sandy, West Valley, Orem, Bountiful, Layton, Logan, who do have temporary signs, and they do have certain restrictions in place, and most of them do require a permit so they can track and monitor how many signs are going out and how the enforcement officers can regulate that. So right now we do allow one area for the use of temporary signs, and that's in the junction. And it needs to be a waiver issued by the Planning Commission. However, there's only one business in the junction that's actually gotten approval from the Planning Commission. That's a tree house, and that's the banner that you see located on the right-hand side. So we went out and we did an inventory of the existing signs in the city, and we found out that, yes, we do have a problem. We have 1,146 temporary and banner signs throughout the city, and 352 have multiple signs located on their property. And when we saw that number, it basically validated some of the concerns that the planning department had when we did that inventory. So as the Planning Commission looked at this, if banner signs should be allowed, their determination was yes, but with certain limitations. And I want to just discuss those limitations with you, which you have in an ordinance form in front of you. But I'll try to go through it quickly, not to bore you. So basically, the definition of a permanent sign, we wanted to have visuals in there so that when someone comes in and looks at the ordinance, they know exactly what we will allow and what we do not allow. And right now, these are three examples at the top of what is a permanent sign. However, we want to show what is not a permanent sign, and that's a banner being securely attached to the building. Also with that, right now we will consider a banner attached to the building with a framework around it as a permanent sign. And so we want to make sure that's not the case, and so we've included in the banner sign definition that with or without an enclosed framework, it's still considered a banner. That they can't just put a banner with a frame around the building and consider it a permanent sign. And so we've included this in the banner definition. The materials that you see there, nothing's changed there. That's still in the ordinance right now. However, the materials that they have in the industry right now have definitely improved as far as the Mylar and vinyl signs. They last a lot longer, so we don't have to worry about them fraying and cracking as much as they have in the past because the materials have improved.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
With respects to your the material of plastic, aren't regular permanent signs made of plastic?
They are, yes. But what happens with this is the plastic is more of a non-rigid material, whereas on a permanent sign it's more of a So is
that in the definition then? Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So we have that, so it's clear that way.
Okay.
The next one is what is not a temporary sign and what is a temporary sign. Little signs being jammed in the ground, not permanently secured or zip tied to posts, that is not acceptable. What is considered a temporary sign would be an A-frame sign, such as the ones you see on the right. So we've separated this out from the banner signs, so we have banner signs and temporary signs that we're looking at. So the Planning Commission recommended some just general requirements for temporary and banner signs, and one is that they need to have a permanent sign in place before the banner signs can go up. So this picture on the right, Costa Vida, in the right-hand corner of the picture, you can see a portion of their permanent sign, And then they could put up the A-frame sign down on the ground, but they need to have the permanent sign in place before they can actually do the banner or temporary signs. And then making sure there's no electrical content with it, so they're not blinking or anything like that. And then they need to be located out of the sight triangle so we don't impact any type of accidents for vehicles. And then they need to be maintained in a professional manner. And then this last one's key, the sign permit is required. Right now, it would be about $47 if they came in and got a sign permit for that.
So I have a question.
Yes.
What do you do? I know business owners on 25th Street who've got new signs and it's taken forever to get approval for that. How do they let people know that their business is there and open if that we don't allow temporary and banner signs before the permanent signage has been?
We still have the clause in place for grand opening signs.
Okay.
So they can still come in and do the grand opening. They can come in and put the sign up 15 days prior to, and then it can stay up for 31 days after.
Okay.
So we still allow for that ability to happen.
So it'd be about a month and a half that they'd be able to have that before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so the cost of $47 per permit, is that pretty standard for most cities, or is this?
Yeah, in fact, when we looked at the ones that were issuing permits, they were right around $50 is pretty much what the standard was. There was some that was a little higher, so we're probably on the lower end of it. But, and that's just basically when they come in, the lowest possible sign permit that we have is $47. And that's pretty much what it would fall under because they base it upon the valuation of the sign, and banner signs really don't cost very much. Yep.
Can you review in the grocery stores or the supermarkets, how do you govern that aspect? Because they do have some temporary signs out in their parking lot.
They do, and I'm going to touch on that just a little bit later in the presentation, if that's all right.
Okay.
And I think it will answer some of your questions, but if it doesn't, let me know. Is that all right? Okay. The next part is looking at some of the special requirements for banner signs. And the square footage requirement is that it doesn't exceed 200 or 20% of the total sign area. So typically in the commercial areas where we have them being allowed, 400 square feet is like the max they could have. And so if you take 20% of that, it's about 80%. So they wouldn't really be able to have that much signage devoted to banner signs. So that creates a limit. And then we also allow, one sign per street frontage. And then we do allow more than that if it's just dealing with the name, logo, and artwork. But still it has to stay within that 20%. So they really couldn't go over that 80 square feet amount of signage in a commercial area. The next element that the Planning Commission looked at is dealing with how they're actually mounted to the building. They wanted to make sure that they didn't cover up any unique features on the building because we have some great buildings in Ogden City that are just incredible, and we wanted to make sure they didn't cover any unique features found on the buildings, and then also that they're permanently attached. But when I say permanently attached, they're not put into brick or anything like that, but they're affixed so that they're hung taut and they're just they're secured so that the wind doesn't catch them and blow them away. The other element we looked at is perpendicular signs, and that sign is found on the Hampton building. And the important thing with this is making sure that they have the brackets on the top and the bottom. This slide doesn't have one on the bottom. I will point that out, but in the ordinance it does have it on the bottom. But it's making sure that they're permanently attached to the building so that they're meant to be there. And then also that they're located 10 feet above the ground so they don't impact pedestrian movement, and also that they come out 2 feet from the building. And that's more just to provide some visual relief, but here again, not impacting the sidewalk. The next element, and we had some dialogue on this, just to refresh your memory in the work session, about signs that are larger than this and possibly allowing those. And as we looked at this, the consensus was, and hopefully we're addressing your issues with this, is that these large signs are not used for advertisement. That's not their primary purpose. The intent for this element is when we have a large sterile facade of a building, this allows the ability to possibly put up some type of mural or artwork on the building. And so what we've done is 90% of this type of signage would have to have artwork or something that's going to contribute to the community. And only 10% of this sign can have signage or written text. And that way, when we look at this sign, they're going to look at it and say, oh, what a nice mural or something like that, not opposed to, oh, that's a nice Coca-Cola bottle or what have you, that's or something that's advertising some type of promotion. And that's what we've included in the language. And then also that the signage complements the building architecture. There's language that talks about that. And then just kind of a safeguard to make sure everything's being taken care of is that we have the Planning Commission giving their approval on this, so they're looking at that. Questions on this particular item? Because I know it was a concern in the work session. Okay. The next portion we looked at is freestanding banner signs, making sure they're permanently secured in the ground so that they are hung taut. And then also they're set back 10 feet from the property line. Typically our landscape setbacks are around 10 feet, so we're still putting our best foot forward and not having these type of signs covering up that. And then looking at the height requirement, 6 feet, and then for just the regular banner signs and then flag signs about 10 feet. And as I mentioned in the work session, 10 feet is the smallest ones they make. Most of the ones that we see on Washington Boulevard are about 20 feet in height, which I didn't believe until I stood next to it and I realized I wasn't that tall.
How many can you place 2 or 3 of them of these signs together, or is there a limit of how many you can put on a area? Right now there's a limit, and that would be 1, because that's their allotment. So they wouldn't be able to put up, you know, hundreds of them. They're allowed 1 per site. So that's how the language would read. And that would be either or. They could either have the banner sign or the flag sign. They wouldn't be able to have both. Now this goes into the, Councilmember Stevens, the signage in the parking lots, and for grocery stores and that, and for auto dealers. And oftentimes what happens is in grocery stores, the vendors come and they just zip tie, you know, Coors beer, you know, 6-pack, or they just put them out there, and the business owners don't even know that they're putting them out there. The vendors just come and put them there. And so there's going to be an education factor that comes into play if the ordinance is passed, letting them know about this. But the main thing on this is here again that there's brackets at the top and the bottom of the sign, and so that they're permanently secured. And also that there's a 100-foot separation between them, and that they're not just, it's not mentioned in this slide, but also in the ordinance it's mentioned that you can't just put up any type of pole. It has to be a light pole that was meant to be there, and that there's a separation requirement. And then also they're set back 10 feet from property line. And so this is looking at that type of element. So it's going to kind of change how that type of advertising is done
The vendors and that will need to be aware of what is allowed and what is not allowed in Ogden City. And when we looked at the car dealers, most of them are actually complying with these regulations right now, so it's not going to be a big change for them. It's probably going to be more of a bigger change for our grocery stores and those type of, and C-stores, yep.
You elaborate on the education factor. What type of education are we going to do?
What we're doing is, where we've already done that inventory, we've went out and we've identified where we have problems. So we have properties that are not complying right now, and we would send out letters to them. We would go out and specifically talk to a lot of the businesses on 25th Street and let them know what's going on. But basically, where we've done the inventory, we can send information out to those businesses so they will be aware of the new ordinance and what they need to do to come into compliance. So that's going to be the key element, is where we've already identified those properties. We know who they are. We just need to chat with them and educate them about what is and what is not allowed.
They have a time period of compliance then?
Yeah, and it's not in the ordinance. It's not indicated you have to come into compliance at this time, but we've spoken with administration, and they are definitely wanting to give a fair time to let the business owners know. And even when they're not coming into compliance after we've given them that fair amount of time, the first notice we send out is not heavy-handed saying you need to pay this amount of money. It's more education, saying you need to come into compliance within X amount of days. Please contact our office. And usually with other type of code violations, not usually, but a lot of them will come in and find out what's going on. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I wondered if a physical visitation to some of these establishments would be also preferred in this aspect. I get a letter and I get bristled up because I received a letter from Ogden City and they're trying to kick me out. But I think if you go and talk to them one-on-one, then you can understand their situations and their predicaments and work out a workable agreement.
And I'm sure that we can accommodate that, especially for some of the larger businesses. I know that when I went out and spoke with Smiths about just this whole issue that we're looking at, I says, hey, right now you probably don't even know this, but you're actually not in compliance with the ordinance, but we're trying to look at ways that we can help make that possible. They were they were great about that. I says it probably may not be exactly how you have it right now, but we're looking at means to possibly create an avenue that may allow for that. And they were, they were glad.
Well, is it planning that we'll be making those?
That will be up to administration, but my gut feel is it's probably going to be planning.
Well, code enforcement, they need a little sensitivity training if they're going to go do that.
Well, I'm not going there, but we'll just leave that up to how administration wants to hand that down the line. But the planners are the ones that are they're going to come in and get the permit, and the planners are the ones that are going to be signing off on it. So, it may be a combination of working, planners and code enforcement going out.
I see.
So we haven't really tackled that one yet, but I know administration is, willing to look at that. So what is not allowed? Typically, it's basically, we've talked about that. Signs that are shoved in grates, signs improperly located, zip-tied, or attached to fences or retaining walls. Those type of signs are not allowed. However, what is allowed is signs that are attached to the light poles in a proper manner, signs that meet the size requirement, and then also perpendicular signs. So the last thing that Planning Commission looked at is temporary signs. And this is looking at more the A-frame type signs. And this is signage that would be typically allowed in the right-of-way. And so with that, we wanted to make sure that we're not impeding pedestrian access, making sure there is a 6-foot clear area. They can be located in the right-hand section with a dashed area 3 feet away from the building or 5 feet from back of curb. And the materials that were looked at is wood, metal, and molded plastic. And here again, they'd just be allowed 1 sign per business. So after they looked at these regulations, they said, okay, where should we allow them? And when they looked at the downtown area, that is a central business district, that is more pedestrian geared. And so in that area, they said, you know, that's probably where we just want to allow for temporary signs, and then also allow them maybe in the neighborhood commercial zones, which are more pedestrian oriented. However, possibly allowing the banner signs in that area. But typically the light pole banner signs and the freestanding banner signs would not be allowed in the central business district. In that area, they would just be looking at, in just the standard commercial areas and then manufacturing areas, they'd be looking at the light pole banner signs allowed in the C1, C2, C3, M1, and M2 zones, and the same with freestanding banner signs and building banner signs. So that was the Planning Commission's recommendation on this item, and those are the regulations that they presented to you.
Mm-hmm.
Discussion.
Yep. So now we'll receive public input on this proposed ordinance. Seeing none.
Seeing no movement, I'll go ahead and say thank you to the Planning Commission for all their time on this project, and go ahead and make a motion to adopt.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2013-12 from Councilmember Gochner and a second from Vice Chair Garner. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gochner?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
No.
Councilmember Van Hoosier?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Vice Chair Garner?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye. That passes.
I have to explain my no. I'm in approval of cleaning up the city with signs, but I'm a little dubious as if we become heavy-handed and we force businesses out of the area, and that's my concern, is not permitting other businesses to come in or restricting opportunities in our own city. I think we need to go through and clean up our city, but I just hope we can do it in an organized manner, which it seems like the Planning Commission has looked at that aspect of it also.
Next on the agenda, next up, we're going to go ahead and go back to recognitions, and we have a proposed joint resolution 2013-2 recognizing the Catholic Sisters for providing a lifetime of service to the Ogden community. Councilmember Wicks.
Thank you, Chair Blair. This is a joint resolution of the Ogden City Council and Mayor, and it reads as follows. Whereas in 1944, the Catholic Sisters of St. Benedict came to Utah from St. Joseph, Minnesota, in response to a request from the city and county officials to build and operate St. Benedict's Hospital. The state-of-the-art hospital opened its doors at 30th and Polk Avenue on September 18, 1946. Over the years, the hospital has served tens of thousands of individuals, experienced significant growth, and transformed into the Ogden Regional Medical Center. And whereas the St. Benedict's Foundation was founded by the sisters in 1976, with the foundation being primarily supportive of healthcare through St. Benedict's Hospital. The hospital was sold in 1994, but they continued their work at the hospital. However, the sisters began working to address concerns of women, children, and families in crisis through the foundation. They also increased their support of education and expanded the spiritual and pastoral services being provided. And whereas, since their arrival to the Ogden area, the sisters have provided help to thousands of local families. The sisters' mission has been to use their community presence as a means of reaching out to others. They have enriched and nurtured families and facilitated support programs to create hope for the future. Their efforts have included providing health care, education, parish ministry, and prayer and retreat work. And whereas, over the past year alone, the sisters have helped more than 8,000 individuals in our community through the foundation. They have completed unparalleled work, and although they will be returning home to Minnesota in the near future, their legacy continues on. St. Benedict's Foundation funds will continue to aid 18 nonprofits in northern Utah, and the Ogden Regional Medical Center will continue to serve residents by providing quality medical care. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell hereby recognize the Catholic Sisters at Mount Benedict for their exceptional contribution to Ogden for more than 60 years. Their presence and efforts have been tremendous, and they will be sorely missed. These remarkable women have dedicated their lives to the service of our community, and we wish them well in their future endeavors. So with that, and I was born at the old St. Benedict's Hospital, as was my sister. My brother was born at the new St. Benedict's Hospital, and he just had a daughter at the new hospital. So I think it's hard to find somebody in our community who hasn't been touched by the work of these great women. So with that, I would make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2013-2.
Okay. We have a motion from Councilmember Wicks to adopt proposed joint resolution 2013-2 and a second from Councilmember Heyer. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. And I believe we have 5 sisters here with us tonight. I'm going to try and introduce them. We have Sister Jean Gibson, Sister Luke Hochette, Sister Danielle Knight, Sister Stephanie Mongian, and Sister Mary Zenson. Is that correct? Great. Well, welcome. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. You're perfectly okay. We'll have you just start with the mayor, and we'll shake hands down the line if you don't mind.
Start down there, and then we'll.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's fine. You're worth waiting for.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, no. Thank you, Journey.
Love you so much. Thank you. Best wishes.
Everything's good over there. You took care of it. Thank you so much. Oh, it's you. Yeah. Thank you. And you.
Baby Sue.
Gather in front and we'll take a picture.
Oh, yes. Oh, sorry. Yes, if you'd all come
Come
for a
inside.
photo. And I'm happy to email this over to you as well. Okay, I'm going to take 2 to be safe. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
We would love to hear from one or all of you.
We're going to need a moving
There's
van
a
to get
microphone
you.
right here. We'd love to hear from you. Would be great.
We were really sorry we were late, but we went to the wrong building. I guess I've never been here before either. But we're sorry, and we really appreciate what you have recognized us for tonight. I always say we have to remember the 155 other sisters that have been here in Ogden in providing care at St. Benedict's Hospital and now Ogden Regional. So there was quite a number that preceded us before we came, and we really want to remember them as well. So we thank you and appreciate the honor that you've provided us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't go away yet.
And we really were a part of Ogden City for quite a while until we moved out to the terrace. So we feel a little at home here as well as on the south end. Thanks.
So don't sit down. I want to put you on the spot for a minute. First of all, I have to make a confession. I was terrified of the nun that taught my 4th grade class. She was, she had a code of strict love, and you know, you certainly have a different kind of love that you've shared with our community. But I had a great opportunity to, I got to take some young girls to tour the monastery, and recently, about a month ago, it was delightful. And I did say to them, I said, this is as close to angels as you'll get. But, you know, I know you're not 155 strong tonight, but any chance we could talk you into singing your song?
Yes, please.
The blessing of the Lord be upon you. We bless you in the name of the Lord. May the blessing of the Lord be upon you. We bless you in the name of the Lord. We mean that.
We take you with us in our gratitude.
Well, again, thank you for wrapping our whole community in your love for so many years.
It's our pleasure, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're glad you came to Ogden, too.
Okay. Next on the agenda is number 7, administration reports.
Terrence Bride will be taking the lead on this.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. This evening, would like to present to you the resolution for your review and hopeful approval for waiver of lease rents for property at the Ogden City Airport, the Hinckley Airport, on a parcel of, on a piece of ground which is currently unused and is fallow at this point in time, has no structure on the property. The benefits I will address also with the proposed use of that property that would be for the purposes of a non-destructive inspection lab that would be an open lab available to businesses and for purposes of education on a lease basis in order to keep the facility open and maintained. To give you just a little bit of background on this request, we are applying for a grant with the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration. As part of the grant requirements, we do need match dollars. And so with this grant request, we would be using this waiver of lease rents at the rate of $5,000 a year, not a cash contribution, but waiver of lease rents for $5,000 a year over a 20-year period, totaling $100,000 for our match with the Economic Development Administration. Again, the building is yet to be constructed. There is no building on the site. And we are looking at the construction of an NDI lab, a non-destructive inspection lab. The non-destructive testing lab and equipment would be used for evaluation of advanced composites and metallic structures for businesses in our area that have need but cannot afford to make investment, including inspection companies that cannot afford this very expensive equipment that is needed in the aerospace industry to do the testing that needs to be done in order to develop prototypical designs and to qualify for procurement applications that they make for jobs either to the defense for defense contracts or in the commercial aerospace area. In fact, one instance was shared with me by Kent Crookston with a local company that said that he was not able to apply for a $10 million contract because he did not have access and could not find an inspection lab that had access to the non-destructive inspection equipment that he needed in order to qualify to apply for that procurement contract. So with that, he did forego the potential benefits and job creation that would have occurred because of that contract.
So are there other facilities like this in Utah, or would this be the only
This will be the only open, leasable lab available.
So others probably have ones that are for their personal use, for the company use?
There are other private labs that are available in the area. However, even they cannot afford the expensive equipment that goes into these, that would go into this facility. So what happens is there just isn't anything available in the area to meet all of the NDI testing that needs to be done, whether it's an existing business that does inspections or a business that needs to have inspections done. This equipment is only available to companies like ATK and Boeing and ITT Excelis and others that are very much capable of putting the capital expenditures into the equipment. And in many cases, that equipment, in most cases, that equipment cannot be shared with other businesses or other inspection companies because it may be, there may be proprietary reasons why they can't allow them into their facilities.
Is there a fee for the test then?
Yes, they will be paying, dependent upon how much equipment they use, they'll be paying anywhere from $100 to $200 an hour to make use of the equipment. Moving along, and please, I welcome you to come forward with questions as you'd like. So there are many different types of tests that are done with the equipment, but primarily they're in two areas for advanced composites and for metallic skin structures, and normally for aircraft. The term non-destructive just simply means that it's a way of evaluating laminations and delamination issues with structures, as well as cracks that might be in metallic structures, without going through a destructive test that ruins the product or the prototype. Key to our request is that we satisfy the requirements of the UCA 10.8.2. We need to give a benefit analysis showing that there is a significant benefit, specifically the benefit the city will receive in return for the funding. The analysis showing that there will be enhanced safety or health, prosperity, moral well-being, peace, order, comfort, or convenience to the city of Ogden's residents. That there may be city tax base that would be a benefit, that there would be job creation, that there is a public purpose, and that a financial analysis would is something that could also be provided. And then prior to analyzing the city's financial contribution, the council must make funding that is the completion of the development or project will that it will promote the safety, health, prosperity, moral well-being, peace, order, comfort, or convenience of Ogden City residents. That is all addressed in Exhibit B, which is the benefit analysis, and that is in your packets. On page 5 of Exhibit B, you'll find a pro forma that shows you the actual projected job creation over a 10-year period. We are projecting that there will be 50 jobs that would be created through training individuals in NDI that would be done by an educational institution, likely the Ogden Tech College, Ogden Weber Tech College. So each year, about 50 people would come out of that program. Then we would see another 50, at least 50 jobs that would be coming from industry that would either expand because they had access to this equipment, or that they would relocate to our area or expand to our area and create jobs here because of the magnet benefits of being near an NDI facility.
So is there, as I'm thinking through what you're telling us, Mr. Crookston's, of course, was the Skywalker. Is that what he was trying to develop? Is that what you're understanding?
So Mr. Crookston had work that he was doing with advanced composites.
Right.
And with the procurement contract that he was going after, it required that he had to have certain types of NDI equipment,
okay,
or show access to that NDI equipment before he could make application.
And he was a composite instructor at the Davis ATC. Is there a composite program either currently or under development at the Weber ATC at U?
Weber ATC does have an excellent advanced composite training program. Even they, however, lack the equipment that they need in order to do NDI testing.
So there are, what types of companies will come and take advantage of this, and how prolific are they?
So we're looking at we're looking at companies that are doing small component manufacturing that supports both the commercial and defense aerospace industries. The companies that would make use of this equipment, again, some of them literally are coming out of garages. They've got some very smart people that are working for them, but they're coming out of very lean capital situations, and they need access to the testing in order to develop prototypes or to develop a manufacturing process that will meet procurement requirements for those that they would be selling to. They would be supporting primes and subprimes in the area like Boeing, Northrop Grumman, ITT Excelis, and several others, ATK and others in the area.
You'd anticipate this facility being used all the time then? That's
even with the pro forma that I have shown here in Exhibit B in the benefit analysis, it doesn't even approach being fully used. But it does show that there's a surplus and an abundance of surplus in the revenue that would be available. We'd like to see it as busy as, in another example, a recreational example, the ice sheet. We would love to see it as busy as that, but being conservative in our approach with the pro forma, we've shown it as just basic use. So several different types of use. It would be for small component manufacturers, inspection companies that would like to use it to do additional testing that they don't have equipment for at the present time, for companies like Boeing and ITT Excelis and others that don't want to interrupt the throughput of their manufacturing plants, that would like to come in and use the equipment to train employees on a quarterly or annual basis. And then also for training, applied training of individuals that are working with, that are students of the Ogden Tech College, the Ogden Weber Tech College. So filling all of those niches, there should be ample use of the facility that will support the maintenance and upkeep of the facility.
Mr. Bride, you mentioned that there would be approximately 50 employees. Who's the employer? Is it a private employer or?
Not at the lab.
Okay.
Okay. It would be a creation of about 50 jobs a year through recruitment or expansion of existing businesses here in the community, and through training of individuals that are already needed in the market, NDI certified individuals that are needed in the market currently that aren't available, that would be trained through this program, making use of an educator like the Ogden Weber Tech College to do training. So altogether about 100 jobs a year that we would see coming as a result of this facility.
Okay, so then the oversight of the lab,
yes,
is the responsibility of the city?
The lab would be owned for purposes of the grant by Ogden City. The equipment would be owned for purposes of the grant by Ogden City and would be maintained likely, and we're going through the process right now with the Ogden Weber Tech College, would be maintained by the Ogden Weber Tech College.
Is there any maintenance on operation costs included in this?
In the pro forma, we have shown how those costs would be covered so that there wouldn't, because of the lease structure that we have and the input that we have gotten from area manufacturers like Boeing and ITT Excelis and inspection labs that are already in the area, all of that, we, by pro forma, show that there is not any out-of-pocket fees for the city, but it would not be run by the city. It would be run by an educator like the Ogden Weber Tech College. And so they would schedule it, run it. If there were surplus revenues, they would plow those back into equipment and other needs of the facility.
So do you have clients that are going to sign up for this right away?
We already have several letters from ITT Excelis, from Boeing, from several companies that are around the airport that have, including Williams International and others, that have said that they will make use of the equipment in various ways. So we already have commitments that there is interest and that they will be out to use the equipment for various purposes.
The documents, it says that the lessee would be responsible for all utilities, maintenance, and minor repairs to upkeep the land, building, and equipment. So,
right. And so
we would be responsible for major repair, like if the roof leaks or something where?
That would likely all, if it is the OWATC, which we think it will be, the OWATC would then use revenues from the facility to pay for all of the general maintenance that would need to be done for the 10,000 square foot
So they
facility.
will put the funds back in?
Yes.
So it will just kind of be, okay.
It'll be evergreening.
Time frame that you're looking at?
That is shown also in Exhibit B on page 5. And what we're looking at is grant submission on the 13th with hopeful approval of the grant by award of the grant sometime in June. And then we're looking at beginning of construction sometime around December 1st with occupancy between January and June of 2014. So curriculum will be developed around January of 1st of 2014 with occupancy about June of 2014.
Speaking of this of the EDA grant, this project is contingent on receiving that grant,
yes.
Right? Are there plans to pursue it if we do not receive the grant?
We do have an alternative plan, which would involve the BDO and property that is already under control of the Ogden Weber Tech College. And so if we are not successful with the EDA on this proposal, we have a secondary backup proposal with EDA, and a third that would be just strictly only with the OWATC.
Mr. Bride, the last question that's been prepared is, the equipment is pretty pricey, and most
Yes.
of it's ultrasonic or ultrasound type stuff equipment, X-ray.
Chirography, all of that.
Right. And so the last question that was presented is who will be donating the money for this equipment? There's $200,000 in the plan that talks about being donated privately. Do we?
At this point, I have discussed with staff, and at this point, we can't divulge the donor at this point. As soon as we can, we will release that information to council.
But you do have a firm donor?
We have a donor that has made a commitment, but they're not ready to make the 100% firm commitment at this point. Even without their donation, we think that we've got a viable grant application, however. So,
what about the match? What's the amount of the match that would be contributing?
So we have the waiver of lease rents, 20 years at the amount of $5,000 a year or $100,000. That would be Ogden City. Then there would be a $100,000 donation, which is 99% certain right now with DW, Department of Workforce Services. We should have a commitment from them in the next day or two. So that's $200,000 there, and then we're anticipating another $200,000 contribution of equipment.
So where would our $100,000 come from?
Our $100,000 comes from the waiver of lease rents. So there would be no cash contribution.
So we don't have to have that up front then?
No. And again, the ground at the airport that we're proposing this for is fallow at this point. It's not being used. It's, there is no building on the property at this point.
Sounds like you, Plan B is at BDO, is that right?
Excuse me?
Plan B is at
That's
BDO?
correct. Mm-hmm.
My understanding is, that you might have an issue with zoning at the airport if that is not, if that use does not require the airport for its use, you really wouldn't comply.
So are you referring to the BDO or the?
No, to the airport zoning.
The airport zone. We do think that it is needed at the airport, and I have talked with the airport manager. There is a tremendous need to be on the runway. We would prefer that if we have the adequate funding that's needed to do that.
So you're going to have planes flying in and out that are going to be required for this testing then, huh?
Our objective is to see maintenance facilities go into the Ogden City Airport the Hinckley Airport as well as over to the Kemp Center with engineering and design work that they would do for maintenance of aircraft. So for example, if there was a door that was needed to have a certain maintenance program done on it every 5 years. Planes could be flown into, and a good example is Learjet, where a plane could be flown into the airport, placed on the tarmac, and the equipment from the lab could be wheeled out to the tarmac to do the testing that needs to be done. And if we had a maintenance company that was approved by Learjet there at the airport, then they would be able to take the data that they had gathered from the testing, design any sort of repairs if they were needed, and then get the plane back into the air. There are tremendous benefits with that sort of operation rather than sending planes directly to Learjet, because it could take months to have Learjet.
How would you do it at BDO then?
At BDO, that would be a huge limitation, but there are still other components that could be done. It's not our desire to go to BDO, but if we're not able to ascertain, if we're not able to obtain all of the funding that we need for the grant match, and if we don't get funding from EDA, then there will be no choice but to go out to BDO. So it's an important component, but it's not everything to this project. But it is, I need to really underline how important that is. It is an important component, and it is huge for our airport to be able to have walk-up or fly-up NDI equipment available.
Mr. Bright, for my information, I was looking at the map that was provided for us for this location.
Yes.
Can you just touch on that? Is it west of the runway?
Would you like me to put this up on the...
It seemed like it was...
Looks like it's a little bit north of the Ogden Jet Center, is that right?
So if you go just a little bit south of the, up in this direction here, you're looking at the Forest Service building. The terminal building is this direction, down this direction. So this is Airport Road right here.
So I have a related airport question.
Yes.
Will this have any impact on existing operations at the airport?
Positive impacts.
So it won't limit any of the operations?
No, it's inert as far as what it will do. It simply provides one additional dimension to work that can be done at the airport. It has tremendous benefits to aviation. It's unique in that it is an open lab, one that is evergreening, that supports itself over time. It has great benefits to the airport and to the community. Right. I think I have covered all of the topics, including the 10.8.2. Just to give you one last bit of background on this, this idea came from the Utah Cluster Accelerator Partnership, which is a group that meets to discuss the advancement of the Utah Aerospace Cluster in Utah. It includes Hill Air Force Base, several prime and subcontractors in the in Utah, including Boeing and ITT Exelis and Northrop Grumman and others, as well as GoEd. All of them have seen a tremendous need for this type of facility and for what they call super techs, individuals that may just have a high school diploma, yet may have a great interest in science and math, and can be brought through a program like this to become NDI technicians. And so for many reasons, these individuals will have tremendous opportunity to gain employment in jobs that are high paying and challenging and will give them opportunity for the future and are very much needed in this area, in Ogden and in the surrounding area. So benefits, as we've discussed, and I'll go back to the graphic and then I'll be finished unless you have further questions. We are looking at requesting an $811,000 grant from the Economic Development Administration, a donation of $200,000 in equipment, $100,000 in waiver of lease rents from Ogden City and the Ogden Hinckley Airport, a contribution from the Utah Department of Workforce Services of $100,000. That would build a building, it would provide needed equipment, and then it would provide a location for employee training, as I had mentioned, for the Lockheeds and for the Northrop Grummons and Boeings and others that need, even Williams International, need a place to come and do their annual and quarterly training. It would provide a place and equipment for testing of prototypes and other equipment. And it would provide NDI training for individuals that would be students of the OWATC to come in and learn how to be certified in level 1 through 3 of NDI in order to qualify for jobs with our local aerospace companies. The benefits we view as about 1,000 jobs over a 10-year period, some from expansion of existing businesses, others from jobs that would be created by companies coming into our area to be near this facility, using this facility would be a magnet and a reason for them to come here. And then individuals that would be trained that could fill jobs that are already here in our area but aren't being filled because we don't have the super techs that are needed here in the area. And then I've outlined the wage rates. These are for the aerospace industry in general. You're looking at jobs that pay in the upwards of $80,000 a year. And in NDI, for the most qualified individuals, we're looking at individuals that can make $56,000 to about $95,000 a year. So for all of these reasons, I request your consideration and your approval of this resolution to authorize a lease of ground at the Ogden City Airport and waiver of lease rents for a period of 20 years for purposes of matching the grant with the Economic Development Administration for construction of this NDI open lab, evergreening open lab. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Chair, can I ask a follow-up question? The resolution is specific to the airport. So if you had to go to Plan B to BDO, then you would come back to the council with a separate agreement. Is that true?
If we go to the BDO, we would abandon our request from the council and we will reduce our budget, and we would not be coming to the council for assistance.
So you would construct it, but with what source? What sources of funds?
We would reduce the budget substantially so that we would just have a match with workforce services and with equipment donations and whatever other contributions that we could gain from industry.
Would the city still own it?
In that scenario, the city would not own it.
Who would own it?
In that scenario, it would be OWATC. They have a 99-year lease on some property that they have out at BDO.
Thank you.
But I would like to state and restate and underline and underscore that there are tremendous benefits to having this at the Ogden City Airport. It adds an entirely new dimension to this that cannot be duplicated, well, hasn't been matched in the industry. There isn't another lab that can meet these kinds of requirements for industry that is open to industry on a leasable basis.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, one more follow-up question, if you wouldn't mind. When will you know that this is a go?
Awards will come, notification of award will come sometime in May from the EDA. And again, we proposed an alternative A and an alternative B with the EDA. And then there is also a third possibility that they won't fund us at all. So we'll see how that turns out.
One more question, if I might. Though it's advantageous to have it at the airport, does it need to be inside the perimeter of the road? I mean, could it be on the other side of Airport Drive?
It could not, and that is a good question. To get the full benefit of being able to pull aircraft up to the tarmac or even into the facility, it really needs to be on the airport. And then looking towards the future with composite aircrafts, just to give you an idea, the Boeing 787, the Dreamliner, is by weight 60% advanced composite material. And this lab is all about testing advanced composite material. We realize we're probably not going to bring a Dreamliner in there, but we could bring Learjets in, and we could bring King Airs in. There's a lot that could be brought in.
Class Airs, and yeah, I can see what you're saying there.
So there are real benefits, and it would hamper our ability to grow the airport industry at the Kemp Center and other parts of the airport if we did not have access to the runway.
Question I would like to ask is, I noticed where it's laid out at the airport. So the property then to the north of that, is there room for expansion if this really goes well? Is there?
In talking with the airport manager, he said that there is some fallow land there that he would like to discuss master planning. But at this point, that's simply just
that's what we need for right now. Okay.
If I remember right, this is a detention pond right now. Is that?
No, no. This is just a graded area.
Okay.
Any other questions? No, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. I appreciate your time this evening.
Councilmember Heyer inquired about the zoning, and if we could have Mr. Montgomery just address that first.
The key part that would allow this to be in the airport zone is the fact that the airport-related activity of the testing that. If we're just solely testing materials that had no relationship with the airport, it would not be allowed in that zone. But with the design for it to be aircraft inspections also would fit that criteria.
We just don't want to violate our own zone. So.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we will receive public input on this.
Just come up
to the microphone.
Thank you. My name is J.R. Lundgren. I was on the advisory committee for about 10 years at the airport, and I know, is this something that would be normally run by the advisory committee, which we don't have out at the airport at this time?
Mr. Chair, the question should be directed to the council.
Council, yeah.
Okay, well, I would ask...
we'll do our best to get an answer for you after we hear your comments.
And then
I would ask that question. Is that something that the advisory committee out there would be informed about? Maybe have approval of? I know Terrence said that that's fallow ground there, but that ground right there has just been opened up because of the closure of half of runway 25. And I know when I was on the advisory committee, and this does apply to the airport, and maybe it's a real good deal, I don't know. But I hear a lot of questions, I have a lot of questions about the viability of this thing. Boeing, I'm sure, has got their own testing equipment to take and do this. I would think a good share of the other companies would have that also. So I just, is that going to be a hangar? Will it be, you know, we're giving away 20 years? What happens to property taxes for 20 years on that building? I know that when I was on the advisory committee, they kept pounding that, hey, the airport's been losing money for X amount of years, and how do we make it pay for itself? Well, is there a monetary value back to the airport that shows on the P&L of the airport? I don't know. I'm not seeing an answer to some of these questions like that. So I would ask those questions. I talked to Terrence yesterday, and I got some of the answers on some of these things. And you know, if there's a business for it out there, and you know, if it's viable, hey, it applies to aircraft, that's probably where it should be. But you know, we don't have much input of the users at the airport. We've got a good group of people out there that know a lot about the industry and a lot about commercial airlines and military airlines and our military aircraft and things like that. We're not being tapped. We're not, the advisory committee, I understand we're going to have one. But when? When are we going to have an advisory committee? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll do our best to get you some answers.
Any other public comment? What do we have, Mr. Terrence? Answer those.
I guess I'd like to know the answer to the runway question, how that impacts the new runway. Is there somebody that can address that? Or did he just walk out?
When you say the new runway, what do you mean the new runway?
Well, he referred to an area that had just been cleared out and opened up as a runway.
Runway 725 has just lost a couple thousand feet. They've just taken it out. And
With
that's what
this?
we're talking about. No, it wasn't. It didn't have anything to do with this. It's just now not there.
It was had a lot to do, I think, with what was they were willing to pay for, and they the FAA instructions was to change on that the length of the runway and the usage of the runway. So this is kind of new property that has opened up as a result of that. As far as the advisory committee, we're working on that. We're close to being able to present that.
So would the advisory committee oversee this project,
No.
or would Ogden City?
No. The purpose of why we came to you today was to satisfy the 1082 requirements of state law.
I don't know if Mr. Bride could address some of these questions.
So the question was put forward, what benefit does it have to the airport? We have, and I think I've addressed that in the 1082. When you look at the Kemp facility and the vacant property, the vacant buildings there, as well as the property that could be built on, that they're interested in building on and leasing out, I think that makes a pretty strong argument that there would be some tremendous benefits if we have something that's more of a magnet to make our airport stand out as having a benefit that other airports don't have. NDI is a huge benefit, something that's recognized throughout the the advanced composite industry is the fastest growing portion of the aerospace industry. Composites are used in the aerospace industry in commercial jets now, and in private jets, corporate jets, as well as with new UAV and UAS technology. Some of those aircraft can be as small as what you can hold in your hands, and some of it can be as large as a normal aircraft. But a lot of them are using advanced composites, and along with advanced composites goes the need for this type of testing, both in the manufacturing and in the testing and ongoing maintenance requirements for those aircraft. So there really is benefit.
The true benefit probably is in the jobs and the potential of drawing other businesses to our area, and especially the airport area. And I think that's, will it affect the bottom line of the airport? Probably not.
Not in the year or two.
Not immediately, but it will bring some opportunities and some jobs and some capacity that may draw other types of businesses to come and to be able to work out there at the airport. So we feel it's a good starter opportunity for the airport.
I'm glad you mentioned the camp facilities there. I think that's if we can enhance those facilities, it would be a benefit to us in that aspect there.
What we envision is that aircraft manufacturers or maintenance operations would locate at the camp facilities or at hangars at the airport in order to be near the airport and the NDI lab. So we think there will be some tremendous benefit. And all of that is really outlined in the 1082 benefit analysis that's in Exhibit B.
I see some value for this with some of, development of sports equipment, outdoor gear, things like that. Would having it on the airport property be a challenge, since we do have increased security now? It's not like you could just go through the gates and gain access like you used to be able to. You'd have to have clearance and badges and things like that. Is that going to be a challenge to gain those other users?
So we'll take a practical example. NV Composites. NV is doing a lot of the same things with advanced composites, and they do have need of NDI, non-destructive inspection. They could come into the facility just like anyone else, schedule. They would have to have someone there to let them into the door and to be there while they're there, but they would be able to do the testing that they need to do and then leave the facility without even going out onto the runway. So the hangar doors could remain locked, and they could do the testing they need within the facility. And that's the beauty of the whole thing, is that it can serve those that are coming in with prototypical or manufactured product that need to test it from the outside the gate, or those that are coming in on the runway and need to do testing or maintenance of aircraft that are flying in. So this really fills both niches.
So would there be doors with badges or something to protect the integrity of that system with keeping people with that, access?
Yeah. No one would have access unless they had someone accompanying them that had a badge that was authorized to have a badge to run over the keypad to get into the
There's
facility.
already a lot of businesses that have this same design where they actually accept people from outside the gate, and they can't let them through their business without somebody taking.
Okay, I was just wondering, with it being relatively new, how that would all work out.
We wouldn't be seeing walk-in traffic. Most of these people would be making appointments, I would suspect, to test the equipment.
Yeah, they would have to schedule. But it's a good question. Yeah.
My real concern, I do share a little bit of the concern that, runway 725 is a very unique situation along the Wasatch Front. It's the only runway that runs east-west, all the way up and down the Wasatch Front. Salt Lake, Provo, everywhere. It would be nice if we didn't make sure that it can't ever come back. And the location seems a little tricky there. Is there anywhere else that you could put it that wouldn't put that last nail in the N725's coffin?
Well, I do know that as I've worked with Royal, he was very clear that we need to set back from the apron area as much as possible, even though it's not called an apron at this point. We need to set back as far as possible along with the other adjoining.
So he didn't feel like this would be a problem for?
He really didn't comment on that, but he said this was the optimal location. So in the way that we positioned it, it's far enough back that it's not right in the middle of what needs to be done if that runway did need to come back. And even if that runway did come back into operation, there's tremendous opportunities for businesses to locate in the future over at the Kemp Center and in other locations at the airport besides that area to do manufacturing and to do maintenance and all of the things that would expand job opportunities in the area. So
Mr. Williams can probably answer your runway question.
No, I've been involved in the airport for a long time, and the reason why 725 has gone away is not because we necessarily wanted to make it go away. It's that the FAA said we will not support it, we will not maintain it, and it's a multi-million-dollar operation to do both those things. And so long ago, the decision on the airport layout plan was to have that portion of 725 go away and that it be redeveloped in uses just like this. And so this is really consistent with that plan that's been on the books and updated every year. And so I think no matter what the use is, you're going to have a use different than a runway there.
So are we going to be able to keep that runway in condition enough for a Learjet to taxi up to the building?
Oh, there's other runways.
They can still get there
there's a
via
taxiway
other.
that comes. That's not the issue.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have the taxiways there. So I think that answered your question. Anything else? I have to tell you, I've been working on this now for about a year, and it's just been a great learning experience and a great opportunity, and I appeal to you for your support of our request, and thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt proposed resolution 2013-6.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt proposed resolution 2013-6 from Councilmember Gochner and a second from Councilmember Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hoosier?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Gochner?
Aye.
Vice Chair Garner?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye. That passes.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is new business.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I'll address both those items. First is a cancellation of a meeting. This is the March 19th, 2013 meeting, and you do have other meetings that night, but just not a city council meeting. You need to cancel that one. So you just need a motion, and
I'll make a motion that we cancel that meeting for March 19th for the city council meeting.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to cancel the regular meeting of March 19th, 2013 from Vice Chair Garner and a second from Councilmember Wicks. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes.
the second item, Mr. Chair, is the Community Wellness Initiative. There was an amended agenda to add this to the agenda. This is a proposed resolution regarding wellness in our community. Just a very brief overview. The Weber Coalition for a Healthy Community is focused in this area. We had a presentation regarding that in December and a request for support from the council and the mayor. As requested, we did some research regarding other programs. The National League of Cities has several programs. One is called the Healthy People, Healthy Places program. Another that's supported by the National League is Let's Move Cities, Towns, and Counties. And the third one is the Healthy Eating, Active Living program that began in California. What we did, as requested, is to draft a resolution that incorporates all of those, the best of all three of those programs, and also the requests based on the request from the Weber Coalition for Healthy Community. So the resolution before you does include a commitment by the council and the mayor and several goals. I think Councilmember Gochner would like to make some comments regarding this, if that's okay.
Okay. I guess first of all, I'd like to thank the mayor and Vice Chair Garner and Executive Director Cook for their efforts and support on this. And I'd especially like to thank Sandy Crosland. She's definitely been the champion of this one, and she sends her apologies. She couldn't make it tonight, but you know, she just has incredible passion and vision and leadership, and she will make this happen, not just in Ogden City, but with the school districts. They're committed to looking at it, and this thing will move because of, well, because it's a partnership. So if she were here tonight, the first thing that she would say to us all is, I am so proud of this community. It's a big step forward for us. And let's see, the other thing she would say is, you know, this is a growing problem, and unlike some other growing world issues, this is one that we really can do something about. As Mr. Cook mentioned, we have, you know, we lay out some plans of how to attack it. And I guess I would just add to it is, you know, we're sending a great message to our community that we care, and we're sending a great message out to the nation that, that we're going to develop healthy lifestyles here. And it certainly goes along with everything else that we're doing. So.
Mr. Chair, it would be appropriate to have Mayor Caldwell comment if you'd like to also.
I agree, and these types of partnerships are very unique in how they're able to accomplish things and galvanize activity and action. And Ogden City's made great strides, and national recognition as being known as an active, vibrant community, and this is right in line with all that. So I was thrilled with Sandy's presentation when she came in, and she'll be a tireless advocate of this, I've no doubt. I've seen her passion at work in other areas, and we're very lucky to have her, and I'd add my thanks to yours for grabbing this and running with it and bringing this unique partnership together.
Okay, and with that, I'll go ahead and read.
Well, do we need to receive input on this, Mr. Cook?
I'm actually just going to read the joint resolution at this point with my glasses.
Okay.
This is a joint resolution of the Ogden City Mayor and the Ogden City Council supporting health and wellness through active living. Whereas the City of Ogden has become a community recognized worldwide for exceptional outdoor recreation programs and amenities. In support of the city's efforts to advance recreation opportunities, the Mayor and City Council desire to provide additional facilities and programs to promote active living for our residents as defined in a recreation master plan. And whereas the lack of physical activity is a leading contributor to major health conditions such as obesity, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes, active living provides opportunities for increased public health, benefits the local economy, deters crime, and supports the environment. And whereas green, open, and active spaces such as parks, playgrounds, and community gardens attract people to the outdoors and offer opportunities for physical activity and social interaction. These resources also support local biodiversity and help to minimize environmental impacts associated with storm-related events such as water pollution or flooding. And whereas the presence of pedestrians and bikers increases public safety by reducing traffic speeds and generating additional eyes on the street to deter criminal activity. Economic development also promotes active living by creating quality of life amenities which may spur further additional economic growth. And whereas active living initiatives contribute to environmental health by reducing air and water pollution, decreasing traffic congestion, and promoting the cleanup and repurposing of vacant land. Connecting these resources with transportation options such as trails, bike lanes, and sidewalks further contributes to an increased social presence and sense of community. And whereas the Utah Nutrition and Physical Activity Plan is a 10-year action plan to reduce the burden of chronic diseases in Utah through nutrition and physical activity. Goals and strategies are recommended for communities such as Ogden, and whereas many cities across the nation support programs that promote healthy living in their communities. These programs focus on sustainable communities, active living, and improving the overall health and wellness of city residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Ogden City Mayor and City Council that we recognize the benefits of an active lifestyle as this promotes the health and well-being of adults, children, and families within our community. Active living helps reduce many public health concerns, and we encourage all of our citizens to find ways to live active lives. It is our intention to proactively implement policies and programs and construct facilities that support individual efforts to make healthier choices. Be it further resolved that the Mayor and City Council support the following goals. Number 1, promote wellness with city employees to set an example for other organizations and businesses within the city. 2, create a welcoming, safe, and attractive environment by enhancing streets, parks, trails, which includes lighting, attractive landscaping, art, benches, and safety features. 3, prioritize capital improvement projects to increase the opportunities for physical activity as identified in the Recreation Master Plan. 4, plan and construct a built environment that encourages walking, biking, and other forms of physical activity. 5, address walking and biking connectivity between residential neighborhoods and schools, parks, trails, recreational resources, and retail. 6, expand community access to indoor and outdoor public facilities through joint use agreements with schools and other partners. 7, include health and wellness goals and policies related to active living in community plans. 8, develop public education campaigns to encourage active living. 9, encourage community events such as festivals, charity runs, and entertainment in parks. And 10, develop and maintain a recreation master plan. And with that lofty resolution, I would make a motion that we adopt this Joint Resolution 2013-3.
I'll second that.
We have a motion. Oh, do we need to receive? Okay. We have a motion to adopt proposed Joint Resolution 2013-3 from Councilmember Gogner and a second from Vice Chair Garner. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hoosier?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Gachner?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gardner?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye. That passes.
And I'd like to just make one more comment. It's truly been a pleasure to work with Sandy Crosland and with Councilmember Gachner. She has a passion to really help these things move forward, and she just went over the 10 goals, and I have no doubt that with her help and the support of many other community efforts that we'll be able to make these happen. So thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding your concerns or ideas. Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. In this form of government, all city personnel are the responsibility of the administration, not of the council. Please discuss any concerns you may have regarding staff with the mayor, chief administrative officer, or department directors. Any takers? Okay. Comments from administration?
I'll add my voice to the chorus of those that are sad to see the Catholic sisters go. That was a real unique event, and I appreciate the opportunity to recognize them in your meeting. That was they've been a phenomenal asset in this community, and that's a huge loss. There's real bright spots of hope, and they certainly embody that. And I appreciated Caitlin's comments on them being angels as you came through. I can't agree more. So thank you, Chair Gochner, or Councilperson Gochner.
And council staff.
I do think that's the first time the council has received a blessing of that nature.
We've had Scotch blessings, but never.
And any comments from council members?
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Wicks and a second from Vice Chair Garner to adjourn. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. As a reminder, a city council work session will be held in the council workroom immediately following this city council meeting. The purpose of the work session is to receive a presentation from the Union Station Foundation and to discuss amendments to the definitions of lodge and social hall and other council business. Mr.